I cut my own hair.
You also look damn good doing it. You're trend buckers.
The advice provided on this podcast is general advice only. All statements made are considered by the participants to be accurate, but accuracy cannot be guaranteed. It has been prepared without taking into account your objectives, financial situations, or needs. All participants in this podcast, including guests, may have a financial interest in any or all of the products or services mentioned. Before acting on this advice, you should consider the appropriateness of the advice, having regard to your own objectives, financial situations, and needs. If any private products are detailed on this podcast, you should obtain a product disclosure statement relating to the products and consider its contents before making any decisions. Where quoted, past performance is not indicative of future results.
Recorded July 7th, 2017. It's the Money Path Podcast with your hosts, Bob Iacchino and Mike Arnold, founders of Path Trading Partners. On episode 79, What in the Why is sponsored by Motive Wave. Go to pathtradingpartners.com and download your 14-day free trial. So let's join Bob and Mike with a conversation with news in the markets.
Okay, so if anybody ever hears Mike say, this is support, that doesn't mean it's stopping there. That means it's way worse if it doesn't stop there. That's what that means. That means things are way worse than... For those of you who don't know, there's official bear market levels, and it would be 20% down from a recent all-time high.
Right.
That would mean it is now in a bear market from its high. But the funny thing, so it accelerated prior to Volvo's announcement. And then you probably have Volvo's announcement in here somewhere.
Yeah, we got plenty of Tesla news. We got tons. This is like a Tesla preview.
We'll talk about that later. But this is something that we talked about, I want to say in episode 30 or so, how that what was going to happen to Tesla, since obviously the car is the thing, even though they're more than just a car company. What was going to happen to Tesla, and I brought up Mercedes and BMW. I didn't bring up Volvo. But when they actually start saying, you know what, this is a good business, this is a good idea. Let's take the 100 years we have of great car making and make an electric car. What's going to happen to Tesla when there's actually high-end competition? The smartest thing Tesla ever did was start with a six-figure car, because from the first minute, they were a status symbol. And so now as they come to a mid-market $35,000 car, everybody wants one. But you can't tell me people aren't going to want a Volvo that produces the same sort of what's the word? Cachet that an electric car does, because you're not in the environment. Panache. Panache. Okay, I like panache better. The same sort of panache that an all-electric car does, like Tesla. And what happens when BMW takes this M1 technology and moves it forward into the rest of their cars? And what happens when Mercedes comes out with a really cool-looking, because I think Mercedes is good at really cool-looking cars now, and they come out with a really cool-looking all-electric. And now there's other options, and they actually, like, you could go buy the car. You don't have to put $1,000 down 6 months before and then possibly not even get delivery on time.
Well, we'll get to more Tesla stuff. I mean, there's a lot. Tesla's been severely beat up, but this is bigger. This is about these momentum stocks, because Tesla does not have the fundamentals to justify what the stock did, but it was a momentum play. And everybody buy every dip, buy the dip, buy the dip. It recently, since really the end of last year, it's been on a tear, and you were rewarded for buying every dip. And Elon was taunting the short sellers. You're going to get your head ripped off. Well, when these momentum stocks shift and people rotate out of them and they lose favor, they tend to do what the Tesla chart did, which is 20% in 2 weeks. And that's a big dip.
That is a huge volume spike too. I don't know if you have volume on your Tesla chart, Mike, but that is a massive volume spike. That is conviction longs selling it. So guess what that means? They're not buying it again yet. I mean, they just got their asses handed to them. So they're not ready to buy it again yet. And that usually means that the first support isn't going to work.
No,
I mean, it might. but
first major support's 280. As I said, the minor support's right here. Oh, did you see Goldman? We can jump back around to that also. But Goldman, did you see what they put the price target at this week?
No. What's it at?
180.
Wow.
So people are piling on Tesla. Tesla's not had a good week. You want to know who else hasn't had a good week?
Who?
Blue Apron.
See, I don't know why, but I didn't put that one on my list of charts. I just didn't do that one.
Remember it IPO'd at 10, went to 11.
Mm-hmm.
Yesterday it traded down to 7.95.
Wow.
So
That's
I
30%.
think it's the IPO to fastest enter a bear market.
That's 30%. Fastest ever to a bear market.
IPO that makes Snapchat look good. Blue Apron's just not very, very happy.
People have to understand that our laughing is not us laughing at misery at all. It's really not. It's that we've had so many years of trying to convince people that things can go down. I mean, Mike's been doing this 25, 26 years now. I'm going on 24, 25 years myself. We've had so many years of explaining to people things actually can go down. Don't just blindly get into things. But they make more money than us while things are going up, don't they?
Yeah.
Because they leverage and they buy every dip and they don't care. And the laughing is just, it's almost uncomfortable after. It's not belly laughing.
No, it's just, I think it's sort of funny. Blue Apron that seemed like a very forced IPO, but it's all right.
Yeah, that's a
let's
cash
see.
out.
And yeah, they cashed out.
They couldn't get Amazon to buy them, so
maybe Snapchat's still holding just about its $17 mark, so maybe Snapchat can go and acquire Blue Apron too with their money.
Sounds like it would fit with Snapchat's strategy.
They could have meal delivery glasses.
We could instantly snap your food.
Yeah, you want your food in a snap?
Well, buy Blue Apron. Buy Blue Snap Apron.
After about 10 episodes of watching Blue Apron reviews on YouTube, they start saying things like, how come all I'm doing is using peas? How come I'm always shaving roots? They start complaining about the tasks that go in there. This task didn't need to be in there. They're using this over and over again.
Well, the people I knew who used to do, they're like, they must have got they went on this huge kale kick. Like every meal had kale in it for like 3 weeks, and people were like, "That's it, I'm done." I cannot take kale for 3 weeks.
The group buy for kale is very good right now.
So I subscribed to a meal delivery service for a while. One of them was meals in 10 minutes, and you just threw them in the microwave. They were fresh, but you threw them in the microwave to warm them up. That one was good, and then it closed. So apparently they weren't making any money. So it shut down. Then the other one was Blue Apron style. It was a competitor, though. And what I did was they had these really nice laminated recipe cards. So all I did was subscribe to them for, I want to say it was maybe 3 or 4 months. And I got a new box every week. And when I found ones that I like that did not have some sort of exotic ingredient that was hard to find, like a Galapagos mushroom or something, when they had just basic ingredients, I kept the card. And that was it. And then I eventually accumulated a stash of about 14, 15 of these cards. And now if I want to make something, I just go to the store. And I don't get the box anymore.
Well, then you have to go to the store. That defeats the point.
Well, not with Amazon, but soon enough I won't have to go to the store. My drone drop off.
That's like buying a 3D printer that makes 3D printers.
Isn't that like an infinite loop thing?
I'm going into that business. You guys want a piece? Want a taste?
I definitely want in. Just
my 3D printer was printed by a 3D printer.
Oh man,
it's coming.
That's where it is coming, isn't it? Where you don't buy anything, you just print it. You buy a 3D printer and you buy the supplies. I need a pair of jeans. You hit it the night before, and then in the morning you grab the jeans off the printer. It's insane. That's Jetsons type stuff.
Which they're going to do a remake of, by the way.
Come on, no.
Yes, they are remaking. I read that. Hold on, that's not even in the notes because I figured you'd make fun of me. But
live action, right? It's going to be live
Jetsons
action.
remake.
I know who should play George.
Who?
Is it John Hamm from Mad Men? He should play George.
The Jetsons remake live action comedy series in development.
Oh, it'll be a sitcom. It'll be I Love Lucy.
But I guess it's not going to be a cartoon anymore. It's just going to be live action Jetsons series orbiting Warner Brothers. Robert Zemeckis to EP. What is this? Yeah, they're
it has
reintroduce TV and audiences to George Jetson, albeit with a substantial twist. It's going to be a live-action sitcom remake. This is a word I haven't heard in a long time. Hanna-Barbera. Remember?
Oh, wow.
Hanna-Barbera.
Wow.
Yeah. So, yep, I don't know when it's coming out. Let's see. The original Jetsons was set in the year 2062 because it ran from 1962 to 63. So they said 100 years ahead. The new Jetsons will similarly be set 100 years in the future, i.e. 2118. So it's going to come out in 2018. Jetsons reboot. There you go.
Wow. Does anyone else think Elon Musk looks like he was made on a 3D printer?
We can't pick on Elon that much.
He's very pale, and he's one of those guys that gets heavy in his body but not his face. So, like, as he gains weight, he looks like a caricature of himself, like a reverse caricature of himself. He looks like he was made on a 3D printer that got stuck around the head and couldn't expand to the size that the head should be. And he's very pale.
Okay, there's Elon's commentary. By the way, I hope you're
making fun of a billionaire, by the way. A guy who bought $1 million car when he was 21. So, I'm just saying.
Well, I hope your 3D printing technology does not use a Qualcomm chips, because Qualcomm's now back at it with Apple. And I bring this up because we had a Qualcomm potential double bottom on the chart, which did not trigger for us. But they've gone back to the judges. The Qualcomm wants U.S. trade regulators to ban imports of the affected iPhone models because that, quote, Apple continues to use Qualcomm's technology while refusing to pay for it. So they're really stepping up their war against Apple again. Let's see, how many, that was, maybe a month and a half ago, we saw a potential double bottom on Qualcomm that traded through on a weekly basis the peak, but did not close above it. It's never closed above it and dropped back down. So that is technically still in play, but it has never triggered for Qualcomm. Qualcomm stock's just sort of languishing around this 55 to 58 area, back and forth. Apple, on the other hand, let's see. Apple chart, because we've talked about this, they've had a nice pullback to the bottom of their weekly rotation zone, although they're at minor support. If they break this key level, if they really get below this 140 level, right now they're 143, 140, they might suffer a nice pullback to about the 132 area. We'll update these in our stock path chats for people to look at the charts, but Apple's looking very, very toppy to me.
I like Qualcomm as much because of that, that Mike mentioned the double bottom that is not a triggered trade for us, but what is it, Mike? Maybe an 80 billion market cap, something like that, 79 billion market cap. They got a 4% dividend yield, which I really like when I'm waiting for a long trade to trigger. Doesn't mean it's going to trigger. You could lose money on the trade, but if you end up holding it, especially if the double triggers, if you get in around the double, the dividend yield will still be close to 4%. It'll be like 3.8%. So these are longer term patterns, which is what I like about this. So you're holding a potential long on a really reliable pattern on a really reliable chart time frame with a close to 4% dividend yield. So even if you're just sitting in it and you collect a couple of dividends waiting for this thing to go up, you add that into your returns, or Apple's not think Apple's a 2% dividend yield, something like that. I don't know.
Well, Qualcomm also is going to have earnings on the 19th of July afterward.
Oh, man, that can wipe out your dividend yield. I'm just saying, if the pattern triggers and you're going to be in it anyway, I really like when there are weekly patterns like this and you've got a good dividend yield. That's just one that I'm very comfortable sitting in.
So that's your Qualcomm and Apple update. How about
80.48 market cap on Qualcomm. So they're essentially taking on a company that has 10 times their market cap, and they're worth $80.5 billion. That's crazy. Apple, I think, is worth $800 billion.
Another
market cap.
bank stock, Netflix. This is interesting. Netflix, U.S. cord cutters watch more Netflix than Amazon Video, Hulu, and YouTube combined.
Who does? What?
U.S. cord. So pretty much U.S.-based subscribers to Netflix watch more on Netflix than Amazon Video, Hulu, and YouTube combined.
Wow.
I canceled my Netflix a year ago, and my YouTube, Amazon has all increased. So.
Well,
there you have Stafford bucking the trend of everybody else, but
that's not like Stafford at all to buck a trend.
Well, yeah,
it's a guy that cuts his own hair and looks damn good doing it.
Netflix in April accounted for 40% of over-the-top viewing hours, compared with 18% for YouTube, 14% for Hulu, and 7% for Amazon Video. It also has the most monthly viewing days per household at 12.3 days. But when you look at viewing behavior on a day-to-day basis, Hulu is far ahead of the pack. On average, U.S. cord cutters are watching 2.9 hours of Hulu per day, which is ahead of Netflix 2.2 hours, YouTube 2.1 hours, and Amazon Video 2 hours.
Surprises me.
Most people, though, watch Netflix. What Netflix is the most binge-watched thing, so because they drop their shows all at once. So most people, when they find a new show they like, they just watch every episode like in 1 or 2 days, and then they don't. Once they're done sort of binge watching their stuff, they watch their other services, and then Netflix drops something else they're ready to watch, and they watch it.
I'm officially a cord cutter. I don't have cable anymore, and I'm becoming more and more comfortable with it. In the past, when you like households that didn't have TV, people read. Now they binge watch.
I watched. That was on Netflix, wasn't it?
What?
I watched some World Wrestling. It was great. I saw this. One guy clothesline another character.
All right.
No,
where you're going?
Glow. Netflix show Glow.
You like it?
Glorious. What is Glamorous Lady? Remember, it's based on the '80s actual women's wrestling league.
That's a series on Netflix?
Yes, it came out like last week. I actually binge watched it. You
were going to say it just dropped, didn't you?
Huh?
You almost said it just dropped.
It did
like
drop.
The rappers.
Yeah.
In my subscription list. Yeah, drop in my subscription email.
That is my highly recommend watching for on Netflix to binge watch is Glow. It was fabulous.
I watched American Crime on Netflix. There's 3 seasons of it, and I binge watched the first 2. And finally, you get caught up and you kind of want to know. It's got a predictable tone to it. Like every episode 3, I could figure out what was going to happen in episode 5 and so on. But if anybody out there watches it, there's political undertones to it that kind of got annoying to me. And so I stopped watching it. But what actually triggered me not watching it was in season 3, I want to say episode 2 or 3, there was a homeless girl with a dog.
Spoilers.
There's not a spoiler. There's a homeless girl with a dog, and the pimp walked up to her, well, one of the girls that worked for the pimp, and said, "You want to hang out with me and my boyfriend?" and started petting the dog. I stopped it, went to a website called Does the Dog Die? And there's a big yes, and I stopped watching. I know they don't really die, but I don't know why you have to have a dog dying in a movie or a TV show. I've never watched John Wick because they kill a puppy. I was traumatized by that in Walker, Texas Ranger, one of the original. No, it wasn't Walker. It was Lone Wolf McQuade with Chuck Norris years ago, where they killed his dog. And I've been traumatized ever since.
Yes, we call that you have repressed Old Yeller syndrome.
Okay, repressed old yeller is the technical term. It's right up there next to Facebook depression. But I can't. This website is one of the best things ever. It's called doesthedogdie.com. You type in a movie or a show, and there's a rating as to whether the dog is in danger, whether the dog gets hurt, and then whether the dog dies. It's like 3 crying dogs means the dog dies. Can't watch it. I stopped watching it. I don't know who done it.
That's when he canceled his Netflix.
I have to tell my wife about that because my wife, she watched the John Wick the other night.
I can't watch it.
She that was not good. Once that puppy died, I thought she wanted to watch the rest of it. She's like, those people need to die.
What if they kill other dogs in it?
She was like rooting for John. She's like she wanted them to kill them in horrible ways because they killed the dog. So
I see their heads explode.
That was too quick a death. She screamed, "That was too quick a death."
Oh, God.
So I have to tell her about this website because
Does the dog die? It will stop you from watching other stuff. I literally watch it and I'm like, I can't. I just can't.
Now, what about that movie, A Dog's Purpose, where it goes through like multiple lifetimes of dogs? So I guess all the dogs die.
Yeah, but so I haven't watched that because I'm not sure if I can take the first and the last death. The ones in the middle won't be a problem because, I'm sure that they go, we'll miss you, buddy. Hey, I'm back. And he's another dog, so he's like right there. But the first death and the last death, I don't think I'll be able to take. I mean, come on. That whole thing with Jennifer Aniston and that idiot with the messed up nose, that blonde, mussy-haired surfer dude. You know what I'm talking about? He's got a bunch of brothers. He was in Wedding Crashers.
Iachino's Movie Talk.
You know what I'm talking about? The blonde, mussy-haired.
What's his name?
You know what I'm talking about. The mussy-haired guy.
The mussy-haired guy.
He was in Wedding Crashers. His brother was in Old School. Like, that family is now in every Vince Vaughn movie.
I have not seen any of those movies.
You haven't seen any of those?
Bucking the trend. Stafford is a trend bucker.
No robots, spaceships, or a remake of a TV 70s show with a jumping car.
His name is... Damn it. Owen Wilson.
Yeah, Owen Wilson.
And his brother's Luke Wilson. They had a dog movie, him and Jennifer Aniston, where it was just about this crazy puppy that drove him crazy for an hour and a half and then it dies. It's like, what do I want to watch that for?
Oh, this segment has to die. I do like it, though, but we got to cut it. We're going to cut it around it. We're going to keep parts of it. I like Bob's Movie Talk with dead dogs.
Oh, why do the dogs have to die? I don't understand it.
Well,
Owen Wilson was also the star of Lightning McQueen in Cars 3, and that reminds me of Disney stock. Do we have any information on Disney stock, Mike?
I can look at Disney.
If you want to. I thought I have
Disney, Disney trading 103.08 right now. It's not looking so hot on a weekly chart. This has actually triggered a trend line trade with the next target lower being right around 98. It's probably fine. Some buyers will step in right around 100. And then this could easily return to about the 96, 97 level, which is a 200-week moving average. And so Disney stock, I mean, it's back. It's really not going anywhere.
They killed less dogs. The stock would perform.
How about that Han Solo movie losing its directors, so 75% of the movie done? But anyway, let's get on to market news.
Let's get on the crude news.
No, crude.
It lies there.
Oh, crude. Yeah, I wrote a piece this morning, which Stafford, you could tweet it out if you feel it's appropriate. Crude oil just wants to be in a range. Like when you look at the last 5 years of crude oil, and they're wide ranges, don't get me wrong. I mean, they're 20, 25% ranges. But crude oil is a really good commodity to, I've said this before, to study kind of supply and demand. And, OPEC talks about wanting to be at equilibrium. Well, crude oil wants to be in equilibrium. Other than the trend from June 2014 to like August 2015 or January 2015, whatever it was, that down move from the hundreds down to the 50s, it basically has spent 3.5 or 4 of the last 5 years in these wide sideways ranges. And that's, again, what's happening right now. We got Libya and Nigeria gaining a ton of traction in their production, right? OPEC's, during a production cut, OPEC production, they released their production survey, and total production from OPEC countries jumped 220,000 barrels. This is when they're supposed to be cutting by 1.3 million, and the non-OPEC producers by another 600,000. So as people start to say that in order to rally prices to where OPEC wants them, and where, quite frankly, Saudi Aramco would like them for their IPO, which is the royal family-owned Saudi Arabian oil company, there has to be a bigger cut. And I don't think it's going to happen, because you've got 3 countries with exemptions: Iran, Libya, and Nigeria. And Libya and Nigeria's production is really taking off, and Iran's is steadily increasing to the point where it's Saudi Arabia that has to cut more and more and more in order to stay within that 1.2, 1.3 million barrel cut that they promised. And at some point, the Saudis are going to get pissed. They're just going to be like, okay, enough of this. We're going back after market share. The prices we're at right now, we're starting to see a little bit of a tailing off of the potential for U.S. production. Last week was the 24th week of oil rig increases in a row, but it ended the streak of 23 in a row of rig count rises because we had losses in natural gas rig counts. So the net rig count was negative, but we did add 1 crude oil rig. Now, I'd mentioned a few weeks back, start looking for the double-digit rig increases. We saw them, and now we're turning back. And also the efficiency of the rigs has turned down. So the good rigs are running and starting to dry up, and prices are not at a place where a ton of CapEx, capital expenditures, are going to go into new shale rigs. So we're going to start seeing U.S. production tailing off, but we're still not seeing an increase in demand, and we're seeing OPEC production increase. So crude is back in another wide range. That's all it is. When we went down to the lows of 39.19, we bounced. When we went back up to the high 40s, nearing the low 50s, it fell. We're just in another one of these ranges. Another interesting thing, Mike, if you look at a volume chart, if you look at volume on a crude oil chart, a rolling crude oil chart over the last 5 years, you see volume increasing as ranges tighten. It's very interesting because people love to play breakouts, and breakouts just is not the normal condition of crude oil. Crude oil is an input in things like healthcare, plastics. It's a required source of fuel for transport, for manufacturing, for consumer goods. It's in almost everything we use until the self-driving trucks take over, or rather the self-driving electric trucks take over. Right now, it's an input in so many industries that crude oil wants to be in equilibrium, and it wants to be in a range. And I think we're in another range. I think we're going to be between 40 and 50, and that's that for a while. That's Crude Corner.
Hooray!
Yay for Crude Corner.
Yay for Crude Corner.
Speaking of crude oil,
it's a big draw. I mean, the numbers from the EIA were big, and yet we're back down because, you know, we're back kind of we're in the high end of the 5-year average on inventories now. But what happens with an average, Mike? I mean, I know it's a 5-year average, but as the average stays higher, or I'm sorry, as our inventories stay higher, the average goes up. So we're at the high end of the 5-year average now. We're no longer outside of the 5-year average in inventories.
Fantastic.
So, an R2D2 droid from Star Wars, the original Star Wars, the 1977 Star Wars, one of the D2 droids, sold for $3 million in auction. So the science fiction prop market is doing good.
Am I crazy to think that because the Saturday Night Fever dance floor went for 1.2 million?
I told them not to put that in. They can't put that in. That's mine.
That the person who bought the droid is an idiot, and the person who bought the Saturday Night Fever dance floor is a genius. Is that because I'm Italian?
Well, hold on. The dance floor actually works. The droid,
right? It lights up.
Yeah, I mean, you could actually use the dance floor. The R2D2 droid, did it come with a person to operate it inside?
It came with a dwarf, Mike, who gets $3 million a year to be your droid, to be the droid you're looking for.
Was it a Kenny Baker costume one? I don't even know.
It was. I thought it was one of the empty droid. Like it was one of the hollow droids that didn't do anything unless you put somebody in it.
Kenny Baker. Yeah, he was in every Star Wars movie as the droid. Hooray for Kenny! He has passed.
Poor Kenny. Oh my God, you killed Kenny.
Really? You had to go there?
Mike, I was so hoping you had the next story in the notes.
Well, the Volvo self-driving cars are thrown off by kangaroos?
Yes.
It's actually quite
Everything's crazy in Australia, by the way. Let's just throw that out there.
But
everything in Australia is nuts.
You have to. This is not something I ever would have thought of. The things that can throw off self-driving car technology, mainly probably because I don't live in Australia and I'm not exposed to kangaroos all the time. But Volvo's having trouble with their autonomous vehicle technology because when the kangaroos hop, let's see, when it's in the air, it actually looks like it's farther away. Then it lands and it looks closer. This was their technical manager giving an interview to ABC. So the car gets confused because every time the kangaroo hops, it's either farther away or closer, and it can't really judge the distance correctly. So it goes a little haywire. Now,
it's the tail. The tail can create all sorts of inhuman movements that, a human would not have programmed into a Volvo. Once we get the kangaroo's movement style, then it will be in the machine. But yeah, tail.
What is it throwing off? I mean, if you see something move, you brake. I don't understand.
It's like brake, accelerate, brake, accelerate.
They're looking at it sideways, and it's using its tail to create lateral movement and in its forward movement. So the Volvo thinks that it can't judge its distance, or it's that tail. It's working like a sail in the air, or it can be used on the ground to hold itself up. Type kangaroos into YouTube and you will entertain yourself and your lady friend for an entire evening with hilarity.
I'll keep that in mind. Now, these Volvo self-driving cars are using NVIDIA chips. Again, we've talked about that. They're going to work out there, of course, going to master this, as Stafford said. This is just something I just thought was very amusing. NVIDIA has pulled back to its weekly rotation zone and turned back up. It's sort of drawn a line in the sand, though. So if it does get back below on a closing basis, the one, I'll give you the exact level. If it gets below 138, you could see it easily drop lower. But until that happens, that's the line in the sand for NVIDIA rotating back up.
This is another one. You need that stock to move because it's got a 0.38% dividend yield. So that is a trade stock, and if it doesn't work, you get out.
Yeah, this is definitely a trade stock. It's bounced just off its 50-day exponential moving average area, which is also that 138 area. If that 138 area is violated, we could see NVIDIA drop back down to 120. So I would not be buying, if you get closes below this 138 level, I would not be rushing to buy this. We should see a much bigger pullback on NVIDIA. However, if this 138 level does hold, that's the line in the sand.
That is the line in the sand.
That is the line in the sand.
Yeah.
Yes?
You said Russian.
I said Russian.
Yeah, he did.
He did.
I wouldn't be rushing in to buy this, you said. I heard it too. I really did.
No politics, Michael.
Oh boy.
That wasn't even the secret word for tonight.
No. Do they sell a Russian Thunder shirt?
Yeah, I saw that. I thought you might like it. We need to get
what?
off the Thunder what?
Thundershirt.com.
Yeah. It's a G-force pressure suit that can inflate with pressure, like when you go through G-forces, so you can handle the G's. But it's for your dog when it's thundering outside.
Oh, I've seen those.
Yeah.
Again, the beauty of having a deaf dog. This dog slept through fireworks, thunder, everything. No stress for my pup because she can't hear anything.
I just want to get one of these I don't think they make something that fits Walter.
He's got a different sort of a build.
Yeah.
You can put him in your R2-D2 droid. So.
This is going to be a big car segment because there's Did you see the other Volvo news this week?
I didn't.
All Volvo
I saw the
cars.
Kangaroo and I saw the electric news. You talking about the electric news?
Yeah, all Volvo cars will be electric or hybrid within 2 years, and it's the first major automaker to stop selling gas or diesel-only vehicles. So every car that unveils by 2019 will have an electric motor, either as an all-electric vehicle, a plug-in hybrid, or hybrid. So that's making it the first major automaker to stop selling cars with only gas or diesel engines. So this ties into what you were talking about earlier, and also with the tie-in with Tesla, because they're just going to be lumped in with all the other electric car makers at some point. So, and then you have
it's competition that people were not pricing into the stock. I mean, I'm sorry. It's like if Volvo is making a $30,000 car and Tesla is making a $30,000 car, I'm taking the Stafford. How long has Volvo been around? 100 years?
Yeah, we can probably say that. Sure. The longest time. They're one of the originators.
Yeah, I mean, I'm taking that 100 years of automaking experience. And they're not stupid, and they have a great name, and they're probably going to team up with somebody, Microsoft, Apple, somebody, where the technology in the car is going to be really good, too. Yeah. Siemens.
Yeah, Volvo is Swedish, and they're very practical, and they're Chinese, but, Indian. No, they're Indian, actually.
Yeah, they're Indian now, but whatever happened to Saab? I'm sorry, I'm digressing.
Saab was truly an aircraft company, and they said, we'll make a few quirky cars. The aircraft division is completely separate and militarized. The car division got sold to General Motors, which turned it into a Saturn.
Mm-hmm.
And it was gone.
And then in other electric cars, did you see the new BMW i8 electric roadster? Yeah, so BMW showed they did a teasing video for their i8 electric roadster, and last week brought the news that BMW spent $5.8 billion developing electric vehicles and streamlining its products to pay for it. So these companies are dumping tons of money into electric vehicles now. Tons.
All right, so I earlier in the show called it their M technology. That's not it. It's their I technology. Their M technology is the M's. The i8 is an absolutely stunning vehicle. I mean, it is beautiful. I don't know about the performance or the reliability or the range. Looks like it's a 15-mile battery, according to what I'm seeing here. It's freaking stunning.
So 0 to 60 in 4.2 seconds, 357 horsepower, 420 foot-pounds of torque. So it doesn't quite compete with the Tesla ludicrous mode. But, that's where you hit the nail on the head with Mercedes, BMW, Jaguar, Volvo, all going, we're going to have high-end electric cars.
Yeah, they're all doing it.
They're going to have very high-end electric cars. And one of the criticisms when Goldman Sachs, what I talked about earlier with its 180 price target, they're saying, look, people... actually, I was reading this morning that registrations in California for the Model S and X are way down over the last quarter. It hasn't been refreshed, the Model S, since 12. The technology has, but not the body style, which I think you've talked about in the past.
Yep.
And that's their flagship product now. Tesla did announce that they will deliver their first 30 Model 3s, that's their new Model 3s, on July 28th. Production will grow exponentially to 20,000 per month by December. Not buying it. So they're just expecting to deliver 100 cars in August. September will have 1,500. And the goal is to produce 10,000 cars per week by 2018. So they sort of have a hockey stick graph for it.
Yeah.
Now, this is one of their reasons their stock was down huge, because this actually pissed off a lot of people. They had a production shortfall. Production shortfall hindered sales during the second quarter. Right after Elon Musk touted his rapid timetable for the Model 3 sedans, they blamed it on, 47,100 vehicles delivered in the first half, but quarterly results were short of the average estimate of 23,655. They blamed it on severe production shortfall of battery packs, which in early June caused production to average about 40% below demand. And a lot of people said, well, this is something you knew about. Why didn't you guide?
Yeah.
This is not like something like out of the blue. You knew you were for a while or having these shortfalls, yet you as your stock price went vertical, and then you're like, oh, we missed it because we of something we knew about but didn't tell anybody. So that teed off a lot of analysts.
Yeah, they're really good at that. I mean, again, this is the company where a memo was sent out to not pay bills so they could adjust kind of their cash for one of their earnings reports, when they literally went 90, 120 days in order to accumulate cash for an earnings report a couple of years back. I mean, it's not how you do it. And this is why the stock is just, they rely on this sort of fanboy mentality that they have for the stock to keep the stock propped up. And that's a time game. It's just a matter of time before people stop doing that. And this may be it. I mean, people get hurt, buying Tesla on margin every time it dips, and it dips like it dipped for the last couple of days. It gets ugly.
It does get ugly quickly. So that's, in other non-Tesla news, but Elon Musk news, SpaceX capsules, the Dragon capsule has touched down for a second time. SpaceX just took one step closer to making reusable private spacecraft seem ordinary. The company has confirmed that its previously used Dragon capsule splashed down on the morning July 3rd, making it the first commercial spacecraft to refly to and from the International Space Station.
Whenever a space organization says that going to space is now feeling ordinary, that's when something always happens. Like clockwork in the space industry. The minute you start thinking that this is easy, you get reminded that you are playing with fire of the gods to get out of the planet.
That was very dramatic.
I love space flight. I know I study it. I think it's very, very, very fascinating. I love aerospace.
Is that when you're not watching your kangaroo videos?
That's when, the lady friend is over and we want to have a laugh hysteria and a good time.
We have a lot of crypto news this week. Crypto segments keeps growing.
I love these cryptos, man. I started off in the podcast muting during cryptos. Now I just love them.
So we've talked about initial coin offerings. A new initial coin offering, which was praised actually, startup Omise raised $25 million in their initial coin offering. They could have done a lot more. This is a fintech startup based in Thailand. We talked about this initial coin offerings, which they're using to raise money. Now, this company, which originally raised over $20 million from a traditional venture capitalists, did their token sale to develop their decentralized payment platform, Omise Go, that hopes will disrupt the current banking system. The idea is to enable any Omise Go user to share funds through the network without the need for a bank account and without incurring fees or incurring cross-border costs. Beyond peer-to-peer payments, the company plans to sign up retail partners to extend its utility into purchases and open the system up to other payment placers. What was interesting is they could have just done these open-ended ICOs, initial coin offerings, and raised a ton of money. And they capped it out. Initially, it was going to be 20 million. They capped it out at 25 because they said that's what we need to develop this. We actually have this product. We don't need more than that. And they weren't going to play this big game of trying to do a huge money grab just because they could, as opposed to, where is it? Ex-Goldman high-frequency trader makes blockchain history, raising $200 million in Tezos initial coin offering in 4 days. So,
wow. I say we do one. I say we do one. Our technology is going to enable cryptocurrency to cryptocurrency in Italy.
It's going to be cryptocurrency middleware?
Yeah, it's going to be middleware from Italian to Italian. How much do you think we can raise? A lot of crime going on in southern Italy. You never know.
But what's interesting is a lot of these, as opposed to the company I just talked about, which has a viable product, a lot of these are just, they're doing these initial coin offerings. They have sort of rough sketches of a product. This reminds me of what's going on somewhere now with some of these initial coin offerings are where if you started a .com in the late 90s, like sockpuppet.com, what was it? And you got all this funding and everything else.
Yeah.
And you were gone 6 months later.
Yeah.
That's what a lot of these
ICOs
are turning into because they don't even have viable products yet. They're just like people are throwing money at it. So really, if you're going to do your research into these ICOs, and what's also very interesting is with the ICOs is a few big players tend to monopolize it, buy up all these coins, flip them back into the currencies, and try to make a quick killing, and it shuts a lot of players out. So as cryptocurrencies, as we talked about, are the Wild West, the ICOs are the Wild, Wild West.
Are cryptocurrencies going to make forex feel like a bean futures?
No, at the end of the day, we're multiple years away from any cryptocurrency being the main anything. And the size of just the sheer size of the FX markets, it dwarfs everything. It's the largest market in the world exponentially. FX trades close to $5 trillion in value a day, which is larger than stocks and bonds and commodity futures combined. So it would be very, very difficult in our lifetime for a cryptocurrency trade to take over. Having said that, you can make a lot of money trading crude oil, and it's one of the smaller markets by market cap around. So that's what I love about cryptos is there's so much speculation in it, and there's no real need to hedge right now. The hedge for cryptocurrencies is the technology to me. If you understand the technology side, you can own the correct one for a long period of time. But for a trader like myself who has zero knowledge I understand the technology when you just do a little, a flow chart on a whiteboard. But in terms of whose technology is better than the others, it's just really fun to trade because it trades so speculatively and therefore so much based on price action that it's fun to trade.
Drop in knowledge.
I think we can transition we have a lot of economy stuff to talk about because we had the FOMC minutes and we had non-farm payrolls today.
A strong non-farm payrolls number, in my opinion. Not a strong wage number again, but this may be a transitional secular in nature more so. You're talking about the discounting economy, right? The entire world now looks for a deal, and productivity is still not really climbing up. So 222,000 on the headline number. The market was expecting 178. That was revised up from 175 earlier in the week, which was weird because the ADP payrolls came in lower than expected. 4.4% on the unemployment rate. 4.3% was the last. A lot of it has to do with that particular uptick has to do with labor force participation going up 1/10. Now, there's not a whole lot to take from that, in my opinion, going from 62.7 to 62.8. Because I would defer to Mike on this, but I would say that a 1/10 increase when you have a data set the size of what the BLS is using, is probably could be considered a rounding error. Right? I mean, I don't think it's statistically significant that it went up 0.1% when you have a multi-million data set. I don't know.
It doesn't. It's nothing that.
It's insignificant, right?
Yeah.
Wages only went up 0.1%. So year over year now, the wage increase is 2.5%, which is not going to generate 2% inflation, by the way. You need multiples of the inflation rate in wage growth to generate more inflation. So 2.5% is not going to generate 2% inflation just as a standalone. Hours of work also up 0.1%, not much there. And we had a revision of last month, or the last 2 months, the numbers essentially revised down 23,000. So that's sort of the big picture, the macro of what happened in the jobs. U6 at 8.6, that was actually up. U6 is the number of all people not working. So that's now at 8.6%. That's okay. It's not great. I'd like to see that closer to 7. So overall, the number was consistent with the moderate jobs growth we've been seeing for the past 81 months. We've now had 81 months in a row of job increases, but it's still not enough to push inflation to where it needs to go. And when you combine that with the split we saw in the Fed as to what should be happening here, some Fed officials thought that the drop in CPI, the drop in inflation, was transitory. This jobs number doesn't tell you that it was transitory. It tells you that it might be something that's going to hover below 2%, which means the Fed will probably slow down the rhetoric of raising rates and curbing the balance sheet. We'll see. I mean, the Fed, anything that the Fed's going to do is months and months away. So when people ask me about the Fed now, I'm like, just relax. We don't need to talk about the Fed yet. I saw a certain guy on CNBC that I think is a moron talk about, the pricing in of the rate hike in September. They're not hiking rates in September unless something drastically changes, and no one's looking at September. And September is frickin' 2.5 months away. So we don't have to worry about that in terms of trading and what the market's doing for this particular day. The market's not going to move on what the Fed may or may not do in September unless you're trading futures contracts 6 months out.
What else did you take from the FOMC?
Well, I think it was a bit of a surprise that they were split the way they were on whether inflation was transitory or not. I'm sorry, whether the dip in inflation was transitory or not, because that's not the way they portrayed it, right? Yellen in the press conference basically portrayed it that we think the drop in data right now is transitory. And very similar to the split that we saw at the Bank of England, where it was expected to be like a 7-1 vote, to leave rates unchanged, and it was more like a 5-3 vote. So there's dissent within the FOMC, within the central banks, and the dissent is split. The UK dissent is focused very much on hiking rates, and the US dissent is focused very much on let's not do too much too soon. It's interesting. Bond yields are something to look at too. You look at sort of the 10-year curve that we have going on globally. And when 10-year notes yesterday reached a yield of about 2.38, right? And that happened yesterday. That was an 8-week high for U.S. 10-year yields. Germany's 10-year Bund are at 18-month highs. France's 10-year are at 7-week highs in yield. Japan's 10-year note are at 10-month highs. Now, the yields are not high in a vacuum. Nominally, they're not high yields. But if you're seeing 10-year note yields rise globally, and if that becomes a trend, that means the bond market's always been way better at telling you if inflation's coming or not. The bond market's just better at it because people that are bond experts, they've been bond experts, they don't move from bonds. So guys like Jeffrey Gundlach and Bill Gross and those guys who have been managing bond funds have been managing them for, multiple decades. So the bond market has always been way better at telling you if inflation is coming than the Fed. So that's really, to me, what you should be watching. And yields pulled back a little bit after this jobs number, which again supports the case that, to me, these numbers are not the kind that bring about inflation, this jobs number.
some things I thought were interesting. They mentioned that corporate earnings growth had been robust. Nevertheless, in the assessment of a few participants, equity prices were high when judged against standard valuation measures.
They're taking equity valuations.
They're looking at the equity valuations and saying they're high against standard valuation members.
I mean, who do they think they are?
So, and some participants suggested that increased risk tolerance among investors might be contributing to the elevated asset prices more broadly. A few participants expressed concern that subdued market volatility coupled with low equity premium could lead to a buildup of risk to financial stability.
Wow.
So they're talking more about equity prices and valuations now. Well, it is their third mandate too.
It's just a different world, It's just a different world. The market doesn't seem to be bothered that they're doing that, and they're doing it out in the open.
Yep, those were some key things, and they were still divided over when to start the balance sheet runoff. Well, there's something else about the runoff here. Quote, a few of the participants also suggest that near-term change to reinvestment policy could be misinterpreted as signifying that the committee had shifted towards a less gradual approach to overall policy normalization. I don't know anymore. But you had the... But you had the market manufacturing index in June coming in just slightly misses 52 versus 52.1. Although the ISM manufacturing index came in at 57.8 versus expectations of 55.2. Non-manufacturing 57.4 versus expectations of 56.5. Services PMI 54.2 versus expectations of 53. The only thing that really missed was factory orders down 0.8% versus expectations of down 0.5%, and our ever reliable GDP Now model forecast for real GDP growth in the second quarter was cut to 2.7% from 3%.
Wow. GDP.
That's GDP.
I don't think we're going to get a 2% GDP. I think we're going to be around 1.9 again. I don't think we're going to be that far off, but they're at 2.7 on GDP now.
That's what they're
Goldman's I think at around 2.9. Actually, I'm not sure. I think they just cut it for Q2. Yeah. Let's see what they say. Goldman 6.5%. No, that's China.
Don't think that
2.8. 2.8 is where Goldman is. Oh, wait. I'm sorry. Here's a more recent article. Goldman cuts Q2 GDP forecast to 2% following miserable factory orders. That's June 4th. Oh, wait. June 13th. Oh, that's 2012. Never mind.
So what's the official number?
Hang on. I'm going to find the official number. Q2, because I'm just completely wrong on all this that I've just said. Let's see. Yeah, so the most recent one I'm seeing is a May 25th story. Goldman Sachs cuts U.S. GDP to let's see. Yeah, 2.8% is where they're at right now. They were at 3, and they cut it to 2.8%. So that's where Goldman Sachs is.
Okay.
I don't know when the first estimate comes out. Do you see we had a silver flash crash?
Yes, I did see that. Did you hear what triggered? There was a lead trade. I mean, down to 1434.
11% in 20 seconds. That's what I read.
I did see that, but it's not as important as the new groundbreaking story that I just put in front of the international currency markets.
What's that?
You're gonna have to look.
I gotta scroll. I can't keep up. I can't find it.
It's right below it's beginning of segment 3.
Oh, Pringles? Pringles top ramen flavor?
Yes. You can have ramen noodle flavored Pringles now for a limited time only. Why?
The best of ramen and the best of Pringles together.
Why? It's actually these college students' dream combined, so they can buy Pringles and ramen noodles. I don't understand some of these food mashups anymore.
Oh man, they're nuts. My pre-workout flavor is Swedish fish. I have a pre-workout drink that I drink, but it's Swedish fish flavored. It's amazing.
You have a Swedish fish flavored workout drink?
Yeah, it's amazing. I had gummy worm, but Swedish fish was better.
Who makes this drink?
I believe it's a GNC brand, but the brand name is Lit, L-I-T. They have gummy worm and Swedish fish flavor. The Swedish fish is phenomenal. The guy who turned me on as a trainer, who turned me on to the brand, he said he now drinks the Swedish fish flavor like as Kool-Aid. He drinks it all the time. They got a flavor called Fireworks. I don't know what that one tastes like.
I hope it doesn't taste like fireworks.
Blue raspberry fruit punch.
I did not know this. I just have to ask why.
So
why what? The flavor?
When you're chatting up, your significant other workout friend, you can order the back to my place.
Would you like to try my pre-workout back to my place? How dare you? No, it's the name. It's the flavor. It's called Back to My Place. Tastes like a dipped. All right, you gotta cut that part out.
Yes, lots of protein, baby.
You know what it tastes like, don't you?
Salty.
It's very salty. It'll burn if it gets in your eye. All right, all that's gotta be cut out. God, I'm not talking podcasts now, but God, these freaking workout companies really go trend, don't they? Here's a 3-pack of bone broth protein supplement. Here's Gamma G Lab Super Kale Aminos. Like as soon as something is hip, they throw it on their label. Bone broth.
That's the back to my place.
Mike, what's the value of ketosis? Is there value in that?
What's the value of what?
Ketosis.
What do you mean, what's the value of ketosis?
Is it good to be in ketosis? Is it
Cartosis.
bad to be in ketosis?
Oh, you mean the body going into ketosis?
Yeah.
It can, for a while, it can be good, not for too long.
A friend of mine is in a pyramid scheme now where he supposedly has a drink that they used on astronauts in NASA. That's always a thing, too, by the way. Dude, they're using this in NASA for fighter pilots.
Because NASA doesn't
fighter
sue,
pilots in NASA.
You know, they don't sue you. NASA doesn't sue you for lying.
We should put that on our Pat Trading Partners store. NASA uses our trading strategies to test weather.
Our trading strategies were designed by the Skylab computer, which we bought at a rummage sale.
NASA. Dear God, no, but he's like, yeah, they're using this for fighter pilots at NASA. Like, I don't think NASA has fighter pilots. Not sure about that, but they're using it for astronauts in the Navy.
So we got the idea for bone broth from NASA.
I don't know where I went with that. As soon as I hear Mike's silence, I'm waiting for the. And in the currency markets,
No, I was just reading a Wall Street Journal
Speaking of bone.
article. Doug, this is Wall Street Journal article that just came up. Forget an IPO. Coin offerings are the new road to startup riches.
And that's it. It's over.
Did I call it?
And
They're talking about maybe Blue Apron should have done an initial coin offering.
Blue coin.
Let me send you the recipe for your own blockchain.
Help me, but this is the new hot thing are these ICOs. So that's in the unregulated ICO market.
God.
Yep.
So, and then they have the graphics saying, ka-ching, biggest ICO offerings of 2017 by amount raised. This is one. So we just talked about Tezos, then Block One, Bancor. But when you see a graphic titled ka-ching,
Yeah.
please.
But we can't say that our trading patterns work, though, Mike. Just so you know, we can't say it.
No. But
You could do an ICO, no problem, but we can't say it. Aren't they mostly crowdsourced, or is there actually an ICO market then?
what do you? Well,
ICOs are crowdsourced,
campaigns.
but you don't go to the NYSE for your ICO.
No,
That's too many abbreviations. You don't go to the New York Stock Exchange for your initial coin offering.
What happened with the Tokyo elections?
Tokyo elections, Shinzo Abe's party lost the majority. Well, there are 127 seats at stake in the Tokyo municipal government, and Shinzo Abe's party lost the majority there by a lot. The interesting thing about that to me is that it's just Tokyo, so you're only talking about 14 million people in the country. However, it is the bellwether for what happens in the national elections. So a lot of the fear in that market was that now, how was Abe going to react? Was he going to double down on Abenomics in order to prove they're working by the time he runs for re-election next year when the national elections happen? Or was he going to just kind of dial it back and try not to be part of this anti-establishment wave that, save for what happened in France, is still... By the way, what happened in France was anti-establishment too, as far as I'm concerned, but this anti-establishment wave that just seems to be going across the globe. So that's kind of the question. Excuse me. The LDP won just 38 seats in 2009, and they had a general election loss after that. So that's obviously what Abe is kind of fearing. But I think he's going to double down. I think he's going to push his. He believes in Abenomics. He does. This is not something he's just kind of trying out. He believes it's going to work. So we'll probably see a weaker yen. It's funny, the yen weakened substantially after that election. And then we had a bit of a flight to quality back in the yen when North Korea launched its missiles and when we saw sort of the crash in Tesla and some of the other tech stocks. And yeah, so the yen is still a flight to quality currency, but it's not trading that way right now.
Did you have anything else in international stuff this week? Because it was a little light.
I'm interested in the people of France right now. Notice I said that the right way, France. I'm very interested in them because they voted for Macron, who actually economically is contra to what France has ever wanted in the past. Macron this week, I believe it was this week, said we're going to change the structure of the French economy by basically making it easier for companies to fire. Now, I'm paraphrasing as always. I'm never quoting. But that's essentially what he said and what he meant. And that's not really what the people of, socialist France has been pushing for years. They called Macron the sort of anti-Trump. But in his economic policies, he's really not. He's really not. In his sort of social stances, I guess he is. I don't want to kind of go down that road now, but there were French journalists and things saying that by voting for Macron, they proved they were better than America. There was one specific article where the guy actually said, we get to keep our intellectual superiority over America intact by voting for Emmanuel Macron over Marine Le Pen. But that was just on the sort of social and ethnic stances. Economically, Macron is very radical for France. France. So I think that's very interesting to kind of keep an eye on to see if there's sort of an uprising once people realize what they voted for. But other than that, no, not a lot happened.
Yeah, and we had a sort of a reduced week here with the 4th of July holidays. I don't have anything else.
I don't either. And I don't have a what. I mean, I don't have a why. Could probably make one up.
You can talk about Path Chat Education, because that went out on the newsletter, and we promote it heavy on Twitter, and we have almost 8 episodes of it. So why don't you do a rant on that? Talk about where it is, what topics it was covered.
Actually, I can do a why. Here's a why.
Today's edition of The What and the Why is brought to you by Motive Wave Software. Motive Wave Software is a well-established developer of easy-to-use, full-featured charting, analysis, and trading software built for the individual trader. Motive Wave offers the best charting tools used by the pros, such as Elliott Wave, Fibonacci, Gartley, Gann, ratio analysis, but it's presented in a very easy-to-use way. Motive Wave has a product to fit any budget and any trading style, and one of the very best features, it's available on Windows and Mac. So go to pathtradingpartners.com right now to get your 14-day free trial, and then visit them at motivewave.com.
Mike, can I do my why?
You can do your why.
Can I start the what and the why segment by doing my why?
You start with the why.
So my why is going to be an extension of what I said earlier in the cryptocurrency segment about how great cryptocurrencies are for the price action speculative trader. The processes are not very smooth yet in terms of confirmation of trades and getting your money and transactional sort of ease of transactional life in cryptocurrencies. But the trading of them, watching the charts and watching the patterns is this is a relative statement, is extremely easy. Now, nothing in trading is extremely easy. So hopefully nobody pulls that out of the show and uses that as their marketing, where they cut off where I said nothing in trading is extremely easy. Cryptocurrencies trade very technically right now, very technically. And if you want to see examples of it, we have a Path educational series on YouTube about cryptocurrencies and the trading of cryptocurrencies. It's not educational in terms of what the blockchain is. There's plenty of that out there. If you want to find, understand what blockchain is, you can learn it the same way I did by watching 4 or 5 YouTube videos and picking the best ones. That's what I did. But the trading of them, the patterns, you will watch Mike describe what he believes should happen based on different triggers, and then you will move forward in the educational series and watch those things happen almost exactly as Mike said. Now, that's not I'm not necessarily sitting here lauding Mike as some sort of Karnak reincarnated. It's just that the patterns work really, really, really well. They have a higher probability than in traditional markets, and we trade them in traditional markets where the probabilities are very strong. So I want people to go back and watch that. If cryptocurrencies was ever anything they wanted to trade in or invest in, to trade them, you follow what Mike is showing you on these patterns when he's showing you trade recommendations or when he's doing an educational video. You follow what he's doing on those videos. Or if you want to invest in specific cryptocurrencies because you believe in the technology, generally people who understand the technology don't understand trading. I'm generalizing, but I found that to be the case. If you want to accumulate the better technologies because you understand the technologies, watch where Mike says things are going to go when they are going to go lower. And you can accumulate your favorite crypto at really good levels. So that's my why is short. But there's an opportunity, and that opportunity will probably last a little while, probably last a couple of years, where there's not a huge demand for hedging. There's starting to be cryptocurrency funds. There's a specific fund whose name escapes me right now that manages about $3.5 billion, and everything is in sustainable blah, blah, blah. One of their largest holdings is Bitcoin because they feel it's within their sort of mandate of doing sustainable, renewable, responsible investing. Their largest fund with over $800 million in their total of $3 billion holds Bitcoin. So there's going to be a point in the near future where institutions get involved to a level where they're now trading like traditional markets. That is not right now. right now the opportunity to speculate safely in Bitcoin. And by safely, I mean that the patterns work the way they're supposed to, is right now. There's always the issue of a broker blowing up, or you guys got to be responsible and research that stuff on your own. We have no responsibility for that. But the patterns are working really, really well. That's my why.
Well, very good. Then I guess I should do a what on crypto.
You could, but you also have a Google what, so.
No, that's what that triggered. The weekly double top, that was last week.
Oh, okay.
That triggered. And it's giving a slight pullback right now to get in. Or that's if you want to short Google, but if you want to accumulate Google at lower prices, that'll also be on our Path Chat video series on the stock update. You know, you can see where you can target to accumulate stocks lower. If you want to accumulate Litecoin lower, it triggered a head and shoulders on a 4-hour chart. So we'll see if head and shoulders patterns. This is the first head and shoulders. Well, actually, we had one in Bitcoin that did not trigger yet, but we have a shorter one in Litecoin, which right now we're trading 46.83. And if the key levels for this pattern are 44.74, 42.68, and 40.62 for possible accumulation levels for Litecoin on a pullback. So we're doing these traditional market patterns on the cryptos, and they hold up pretty well. Let me just look over at Bitcoin because I haven't looked at that yet today. Bitcoin, the head and shoulders is valid and in place. It has not yet invalidated it, so we'll have to do a educational segment with the new levels because it has not triggered yet. For Bitcoin on its daily head and shoulders pattern. I guess that's my what's.
Nice what, Mikey?
That's a show.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. I don't think we get watched, but I'm Bob Iacchino. We'll talk to you guys next week.
And I'm Mike Arnold, going to get my can of ramen-flavored Pringles.
Great.